Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Talk English Freely. So good to see you again.
Hi everyone. Welcome back to Talk English Freely. So good to see you again.
How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about you, Jessica?
I'm good. Actually, my car broke down yesterday and I had to take the bus to work. It was such a hassle.
Oh no, that sounds frustrating. What happened to your car?
I don't know exactly, it just wouldn't start. I have to take it to the mechanic this weekend, but dealing with public transportation reminded me how annoying it can be.
Yeah, transportation can be really stressful.
And that's our topic today.
That's right, today we're talking about transportation, how we get around, commuting to work, different ways to travel.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Brian.
Today, we're talking about transportation, how real people talk about getting from place to place every day.
Yeah, this is everyday English, real conversation, just two people sharing experiences.
Right, so if you're new here, welcome. We talk about real life in natural English. That's how you learn best.
And if you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe. That subscribe button really helps us.
Yes, please. And leave a like if you enjoyed today's conversation.
Every like means a lot to us.
All right, ready to talk about transportation?
Absolutely. This should be relatable.
Let's go. So, Brian, let me start with a simple question. How do you usually get around? Do you drive, take public transportation, or what?
I drive my own car most of the time. I've been driving for about 10 years now. I find it's the most convenient option for me personally. I can leave whenever I want without waiting for buses or trains, and I can go directly to where I need to be.
I drive too, most of the time anyway. I've had my car for about 5 years now. Like you said, it's just more convenient than other options. But sometimes I wish I didn't have to drive everywhere.
Why is that?
Well, driving can be really stressful, especially in heavy traffic. And then there's the cost of gas, insurance, maintenance, parking. It all adds up to a lot of money every month. Sometimes I think about selling my car and just using public transportation.
I understand that feeling. Cars are definitely expensive to own and maintain, but for me the convenience is worth the cost. I live in an area where public transportation isn't very good, so having a car is almost necessary.
That makes sense. If public transportation isn't reliable in your area, you need a car. Now, let me ask about learning to drive. Do you remember getting your driver's license?
Oh yeah, I got my license when I was 17 years old. I took driver's education classes in high school. Then I had to take a written test and a driving test. I was so nervous during the driving test.
I remember being nervous too. I failed my driving test the first time actually. It was so embarrassing and discouraging. I had to wait a few weeks and try again. The second time I passed, thankfully.
Failing the first time is pretty common, actually. A lot of people don't pass on their first try. The driving test is stressful. You're being watched and judged on everything you do. It's hard to stay calm.
That's true. It's very nerve-wracking. Now when I see new drivers on the road, I try to be patient. I remember what it was like being new and scared. Okay, different question now. What kind of car do you drive?
I drive a mid-size sedan. Nothing fancy or expensive. Just a reliable, practical car that gets me where I need to go. I bought it used about 3 years ago. It's fuel efficient, which saves me money on gas.
That's smart to prioritize reliability and fuel efficiency. I drive an SUV, which I sometimes regret buying. It's comfortable and spacious, but it uses a lot of gas. Every time I fill up the tank, it costs me over $60. I should have bought something more economical.
Yeah, SUVs are expensive to fuel, but if you need the space for cargo or passengers, then it makes sense. Do you ever think about switching to a more fuel-efficient car?
I do think about it, especially when gas prices go up. But I still owe money on my current car loan, so I'm stuck with it for at least a few more years. When this car is paid off, I'll definitely consider something more economical. Maybe even an electric car if I can afford it.
Electric cars are interesting. They're better for the environment, and you save money on gas because you charge them instead, but they're still pretty expensive to buy, and you need access to charging stations.
Right, the infrastructure isn't quite there yet in many places. I'd love to have an electric car eventually, but right now it's not practical for me with my budget and living situation. Do you ever think about getting an electric car?
I've thought about it, but like you said, the upfront cost is high, and I'm not sure there are enough charging stations in my area. Plus, I'm worried about the battery range on long trips.
Those are all valid concerns about electric vehicles. The technology is improving though, so maybe in a few years. Now, let me ask about your commute to work. How long does it take you to get to work each day?
My commute is about 30 minutes each way, so that's an hour total every day. Sometimes it's longer if there's traffic. On really bad days, it can take 45 minutes or even an hour one way. That's really frustrating when it happens.
An hour total isn't too bad, actually. My commute is similar, about 25 to 30 minutes each way normally. But like you said, traffic can make it much longer. I've had days where it took me over an hour to get home.
Yeah, traffic is the worst part of driving. Sitting in your car not moving, just wasting time and gas. It's so frustrating. Do you ever take alternate routes to avoid traffic?
I try to, but honestly, all the routes seem equally bad during rush hour. There's just too many cars on the road at the same time. Everyone's trying to get to work or get home at the same time. The roads can't handle that many vehicles.
That's true. Rush hour is terrible, no matter which route you take. I've tried leaving earlier or later to avoid the worst traffic. Leaving 30 minutes earlier really helps. The roads are much clearer.
I should try that. I'm not a morning person though, so waking up earlier sounds painful. But it might be worth it to avoid sitting in traffic. Now, let me ask, do you use any navigation or traffic apps?
Yes, I use a navigation app on my phone all the time, even for routes I know well, because it tells me about traffic conditions in real time and suggests faster alternate routes if there's congestion. It's saved me a lot of time over the years.
Which app do you use mainly?
I use the one that comes with my phone mostly, but sometimes I use other apps that specialize in traffic. They show you where accidents or police or road hazards are. Other drivers report problems, and everyone benefits from that information. It's really helpful for avoiding delays.
I use similar apps too. I don't know how people drove before these apps existed. You'd just sit in traffic not knowing what was causing the delay. Now at least you have information and can make decisions. Do you use any parking apps?
I've used parking apps a few times when going downtown. They show you available parking spots nearby and let you pay for parking through the app. It's convenient because you don't need coins or worry about meters. But I don't use them regularly since I have free parking at work.
That's convenient that you have free parking. I've used parking apps in cities where parking is complicated. They definitely make life easier when you're in an unfamiliar area. Now let me ask about parking at work. Is parking easy or difficult where you work?
Parking at my work is pretty easy, fortunately. We have a big parking lot for employees. It's free parking too, which is nice. I know some people have to pay for parking every day. That would add up to a lot of money over time.
You're lucky to have free parking. I have to pay for parking at my office building. It costs me about $150 per month just for a parking spot. It's ridiculous, but I don't have another option. Street parking is impossible to find in my area.
Wow, $150 a month just for parking. That's a lot of money. That's almost $2,000 per year just to park your car. Have you thought about taking public transportation to avoid that cost?
I have thought about it, especially to save that parking money, but the bus route from my house to work isn't very direct. It would take me over an hour each way with transfers. So I'd be spending 2 hours commuting instead of 1 hour. That's too much time wasted every day.
Yeah, that doesn't seem worth it. Time is valuable too, not just money. If public transportation takes twice as long, then driving makes more sense even with the parking cost.
That's my thinking too. I'd rather pay the money and save the time. Now, let me ask about public transportation in general. Do you ever use buses or trains?
Not very often, honestly. Maybe a few times a year when I go downtown for events or concerts. Parking downtown is expensive and hard to find, so taking the train makes more sense for those situations. But for daily commuting, I always drive my car.
I'm similar to you. I rarely use public transportation except for special occasions. When I do use it, I'm always reminded of why I prefer driving. The buses and trains are often crowded and uncomfortable.
Yeah, crowding is definitely an issue with public transportation, especially during rush hour when everyone's commuting. You're packed in with strangers, standing up the whole time. It's not pleasant.
Right, and there's also the issue of cleanliness. Public transportation can be pretty dirty sometimes. The seats, the floors, everything feels grimy. I always feel like I need to wash my hands after riding the bus.
That's a valid concern. Cleanliness varies a lot depending on the city and the system. Some cities have really clean, modern public transportation, but others, not so much. Where I live, it's somewhere in the middle.
Same here, it's hit or miss. Sometimes the bus is clean and fine. Other times it's dirty and smells bad and I regret getting on. Okay, different question now. Have you ever had any accidents or close calls while driving?
Fortunately, I've never been in a serious accident. I've had a few minor fender benders over the years, like backing into a pole in a parking lot, or someone bumping into me at a red light, but nothing major with injuries or serious damage. I consider myself lucky.
That's good that you've never had a serious accident. I've been in one accident about 3 years ago. Someone ran a red light and hit the side of my car. Nobody was seriously hurt, just minor injuries and bruises. But my car was totaled and I had to buy a new one.
That must have been scary, even if you weren't seriously hurt. Car accidents are traumatic experiences. Were you afraid to drive after that?
Yes, actually, I was nervous about driving for a few months afterward, especially going through intersections where the accident happened. I would slow down and look extra carefully in all directions. It took time to feel comfortable and confident driving again, but eventually, I got over it.
That's understandable. It takes time to recover from something like that psychologically. I'm glad you were able to overcome the fear. Now, me ask about alternative transportation. Do you ever bike or walk places?
I walk sometimes if the destination is close by and the weather is nice, like if I'm going to a store that's just a few blocks away. But I never bike anywhere because the roads aren't safe for cyclists. There are no bike lanes, and drivers don't respect cyclists.
Yeah, cycling can be dangerous depending on where you live. In some cities there's good bike infrastructure, protected bike lanes, and bike-friendly roads, but in many places, it's not safe at all. I don't bike on roads either, for the same reasons.
Right, it's just too risky. I admire people who bike to work every day. They're saving money and getting exercise at the same time, but I don't trust drivers enough to feel safe on a bike.
Same here. I wish more cities would invest in bike infrastructure. It would be better for the environment and for people's health, but it requires a lot of planning and money.
True. Now let me ask about long-distance travel. When you travel to other cities or states, how do you usually go?
It depends on the distance. If it's within a few hundred miles, I'll usually drive because it's more convenient. I can leave whenever I want and bring whatever I want. But if it's really far, like across the country, then I'll fly because driving would take too long.
That makes sense. To choose based on distance, I'm the same way with short trips versus long trips. Driving gives you more freedom and flexibility for shorter distances, but flying is necessary when the destination is far away.
Yeah, although I have to say, I don't particularly enjoy flying. Airports are stressful with security lines and crowds, and airplane seats are so uncomfortable. But sometimes it's the only practical option.
I agree, flying isn't fun anymore. It used to feel exciting and special to fly somewhere. But now, it's just uncomfortable and annoying most of the time. The seats keep getting smaller, and there's no legroom.
And flights are often delayed or canceled, which throws off your entire travel plans. I've had some really frustrating experiences with flight delays, sitting in the airport for hours waiting.
Oh, I've been there too. I once had a flight delayed by 6 hours. I was stuck in the airport with nothing to do. It was miserable and exhausting. By the time I finally got to my destination, I was so tired.
6 hours is terrible. That's basically a whole day wasted. Those kinds of delays make you want to just drive instead, even if it takes longer.
Exactly. At least when you're driving, you're making progress. You're not just sitting and waiting helplessly. Now, let me ask about carpooling or ride sharing. Have you ever done that?
I've done ride sharing a few times when my car was in the shop. Using apps like Uber or Lyft, it's convenient but expensive if you do it regularly. I've never done carpooling with coworkers though. I prefer having my own car and my own schedule.
I tried carpooling with a coworker for a few months once. We lived in the same neighborhood and worked in the same building, so it made sense to share rides and split gas costs. But it didn't work out long term because our schedules didn't always match.
Yeah, that's the problem with carpooling. You lose flexibility. If one person wants to leave early or stay late, it affects the other person. That's why I prefer driving alone, even though it costs more.
I understand that preference completely. Independence and flexibility are worth paying for. Okay, let me ask about traffic laws and rules. Do you always follow the speed limit, or do you speed sometimes?
Honestly, I speed a little bit sometimes, like going 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit on the highway. Most people do that, but I never speed excessively or dangerously. I try to drive safely and responsibly.
I'm pretty similar, actually. I'll go a bit over the speed limit if traffic is moving fast, but I'm careful not to drive recklessly or dangerously. I've gotten a few speeding tickets over the years, though, which were expensive and annoying.
I've gotten one speeding ticket in my life. It was about $200. That taught me to be more careful about my speed. I don't want to pay those fines again. Plus, speeding tickets can increase your insurance rates.
Yes, that's true. My insurance went up after my tickets. It's really not worth it to speed and risk getting caught. Better to just leave a few minutes earlier and drive the speed limit. Okay, different topic now. What's the worst experience you've ever had with transportation?
The worst was probably when my car broke down on the highway. I was driving home from work in the evening, and suddenly my car just stopped running. I had to pull over to the shoulder and wait for a tow truck in the hot sun.
That sounds awful. How long did you have to wait?
About 2 hours. It felt like forever. Cars were flying past me at high speeds. I was worried someone might hit my car, and it was summer, so it was really hot sitting there. Finally, the tow truck came and took my car to a repair shop.
2 hours is a long time to wait in that situation. I'm glad you were okay and nobody hit you. My worst transportation experience was probably missing a flight. I was running late and got stuck in terrible traffic on the way to the airport.
Oh no! Did you make it or miss the flight completely?
I missed it by about 10 minutes. I got to the gate and the door was already closed. They wouldn't let me on even though the plane was still there. I had to buy a new ticket for the next flight. It cost me an extra $400, and I lost a whole day of my trip.
That's so frustrating. Airlines are really strict about those cutoff times. Even if the plane hasn't left yet, they won't let you board.
I know, I understand the rules, but it was still incredibly frustrating. Now I always leave extra early for the airport to avoid that situation. Okay, final question before we wrap up. What advice would you give to someone about transportation and commuting?
A few pieces of advice come to mind. First, leave earlier than you think you need to. Give yourself buffer time for unexpected delays, traffic, accidents, whatever. Better to arrive early than be stressed and late.
That's really good advice about leaving early. What else would you suggest?
Second, maintain your vehicle properly if you drive. Regular oil changes, tire checks, all that stuff. Preventive maintenance saves you from breakdowns and expensive repairs later. Third, consider your commute when choosing where to live or work.
Those are all excellent practical tips. Anything else you'd add?
Fourth, if you take public transportation, plan your route ahead of time. Know the schedule and have a backup plan. And finally, try to make your commute productive or enjoyable. Listen to podcasts, audiobooks, music you love.
Thank you, Brian. Those are really helpful tips for anyone who commutes regularly. I especially like the idea about making commute time more enjoyable. That's something I should do more often.
Yeah, your commute doesn't have to be completely wasted time. You can learn or relax during that time.
Good point.
Okay, I think we've covered transportation pretty well.
Yeah, we talked about everything. Driving, public transportation, commuting, accidents, all of it.
Hopefully this conversation was helpful.
I think it was. Well, everyone, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to us talk about transportation.
Yeah, thanks for being here with us. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We make these conversations regularly. Real English, real topics.
We'll be back soon with another conversation.
So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.
And tell us in the comments, how do you get to work? Do you drive, take the bus, bike, walk?
Yeah, we'd love to hear about your commute.
All right, everyone, stay safe on the roads.
Drive carefully.
Be patient with traffic.
Every journey matters.
Get there safely.
Keep learning, keep listening.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.